Welcome back to Desk Careers. I'm so excited to bring another incredible guest. Today we are meeting with Saahil Mehta, who is an entrepreneur, an author, and a mountaineer. Welcome to Desk Careers, Saahil. I'm so happy to have you with me today.
Pleasure to be here, Maria.
So many questions, so little time. Let's go right back to the beginning when you were a younger person. I mean, an entrepreneur, an author, a mountaineer, three huge titles. So much depth, but where did it all begin? Do you remember being a teenager and thinking about the future career that you'd like to jump into?
So, as a teenager, I always saw and looked up to my father. And my father, funnily enough, he was actually not an entrepreneur, but I thought he was an entrepreneur because where he was working, I thought he was a partner in the business. But it turned out, I found out many years later that he was an employee. However, he was treated as a someone who could make decisions. And so I saw him, from childhood, meeting clients, inviting them over to the house, inviting me to the office. So that was the environment I grew up in. And what I found most fascinating was that he involved us, right? He wanted us to know that this is part of life. It's not a job. And so it's been ingrained in my mind that entrepreneurship or business is a responsibility.
Amazing. It is quite a responsibility. Okay, so you were interested in maths, design, technology, and sciences. Where did you go from being very technical to becoming a mountaineer?
So there are a few bits in between that I have to share. So after finishing my A levels, which was focused in on these three areas, I then moved over to electronic and electrical engineering in university. And most people think that once you do that, you're going to be an engineer. But the reality is, I was focused on money. I'm like, wait, I have the brains now. How can I get a good amount of salary? And it turned out that people in the investment banking industry were paying high salaries, which was very attractive. And what I didn't know, and I found out soon enough, was they loved not necessarily what degree you do, but how you think. And so I think about half of our class that entered, which was a batch of 40 students into Credit Suisse First Boston, which is where I worked, were either engineers, mathematicians, or scientists. And it wasn't even necessarily working in the back end of the company. So, in the initial drive, fortunately or unfortunately, was monetary. But as I started to enjoy life and kind of, I don't know what it is, but as a child, I always thought Mount Everest, wouldn't it be cool to climb it one day? And then although it's very high, someone said, hey, you can actually just go up to the base of Mount Everest, which is still high. It's over 5,000 meters. And so after marriage, I asked my wife, hey, let's go. And she said, sure. So to my surprise, it was great to do it with someone you love. A friend joined us. A lot of people made excuses not to come. But once I went on the mountain, I got what they call the mountain bug, right? And it meant that after that, I just wanted to go back again and again and again. And so nowadays, at least once every 2 years, I say, let's pick a big mountain and let's go.
Amazing. I like the way you say that. It's like, hey, what are we going to do today? Let's go pick a mountain and go. Talk to us about some of those career highlights. So you talked about going through different careers that have taught you valuable lessons, or that's how you describe it. You say that you jumped a lot and that you would reply when they helped you to discover who you truly were and had the courage to step into it. What does that mean, especially for a young person watching this right now who may be thinking, my parents want me to go down a specific path. I'm really so confused. My teachers are telling me to do something different. I really don't know how to choose that. How do you advise them, considering that you jumped a lot and that you would jump in when something was there that you could discover?
That's such a great question. So, what is your reason for picking the job that you wish to pick, whether it's the industry or the country, etc.? Now, mine was monetary, as I mentioned initially. And then what happened, my father, who I thought was an entrepreneur, he was working, he left because he reached the retirement age and he had to then set up a company on his own. And I thought, hey, if my father's 55 years old and trying to start a company, perhaps he needs my help. So what I ended up doing is I quit my job as an investment banker. So emotions took over, right? And at first I went with money, emotions took over. I went to join my father only to be told, hey, actually don't work for me, because even if my business increases, doubles or triples in size, I can still manage it on my own. So he was very risk averse. So he then said, why don't you go, since you're coming into this industry, which is the diamond trading industry, he said, why don't you go work for these family friends of ours? Which I did. But then I quickly found out that working for people who you know or who are your friends can be a really bad idea. So, some may look at this as a mistake, and even the leaving the investment banking as a mistake, but I just look at it as lessons in life. I don't get beat up about it too much. But then what happened was I was working for a friend. I realized after 3 years or 3.5 years, our friendship started to fizzle. And I came to this crossroad where I had to decide between career and friendship. And I know that I can replace my job, but I can't replace a friendship. So I quit, not knowing what I wanted to do, but I said this wasn't the right thing for me. So I was in the US at the time. I'm sitting around in New York. A friend finds out that I'm there, and he goes, "Hey, I remember you from university, and you were very good at numbers and analytics. I'm doing some real estate investments. Why don't you come and help me put together financial models to assess whether these investments are profitable or worth pursuing?" So I said, okay, let's go. And I started helping him. And the next thing I knew, I was in the real estate industry, working up until 2008 when the world came crashing down. And that's where I was really at rock bottom, because I thought I had diversified. I thought I had, taken precautions to ensure that risk was being managed, but no, nothing helped. And from there, I had to really build myself. And I had to ask myself, what is it that I want to do? But the truth is, Maria, I wasn't being honest with myself. I would just quickly jump on whatever came my way, because I'm like, I can't be many months without a job. So I was doing lots of work where I was content and I put in my all, but it wasn't fulfilling. And it was only up until a few years ago where I realized that my passion, what I'm good at, what the world wants and what they're willing to pay for, is to share my experience, and that led me to writing my book and becoming an author. And now I work with leaders, or aspiring leaders, to help them to identify clutter, things that are holding them back in their life, and break free from it. Because our mind is racing at a very fast pace. Should I not? I can't. They want me to, but no, but I want to do this and it's different. And it's how to remove that clutter in your mind so you can have more clarity and focus, and then go with what you feel. Because I believe, Maria, that each and every one of us know what we want. We feel it inside, but sometimes we just don't have the courage to step forward and make that bold decision that really is needed. And that's what I did. I stepped into what I have now become, and it's extremely fulfilling, and I'm able to make impact with people. So my 2 cents that I would share with all the students that are listening is take the first step. In mountaineering, I always say, if you don't go down a certain path, you may not see the path up ahead. So don't hold back. Don't worry. It's if whatever you choose today is not what you're going to be locked in for the rest of your life. But start walking down that path, and things will start to appear and guide you where you have to go. And your intuition will always tell you what you must do. And have the courage to step into that and shine your light.
Incredible tips. My concern for a young person is understanding when it's their intuition and understanding when it's fear. How do you recognize the difference? I mean, you use the example of being a mountaineer. How do you know when instinct tells you go left, but it's actually fear telling you go left because I'm scared to go right? What would you describe for a young person to identify the difference between the two?
So in my experience, I always say that there's two, you operate in one of two modes. You either operate in the mode of fear or you operate in the mode of faith, right? And so when you're in the mode of fear, you have to ask yourself, because you know your body better than anyone. When you enter the zone of fear, certain things start to happen. Maybe you get a tingling feeling somewhere. Maybe you get, your hand starts to shake. I don't know what it is, but everyone has a different way that they react to fear. And it's about recognizing that, because ultimately what fear is going to do is it's going to push you back into your comfort zone. And if you're in your comfort zone, you're never going to learn or grow, because it's comfortable there. I know how it feels. I like it here. It's cushy. Let's not go anywhere. But when you understand that this is where I'm in the zone of fear because of whatever you're feeling in your body, you ask yourself, is my life really at risk here? Because previously we had this to protect us in case we were being chased by some wild animal. But in reality, today, that's not the case. So if you're not in danger of dying, ask yourself, okay, what do I need to learn to get over this fear? Let me take one step and see what happens. So even in mountaineering, when it kicks in, I say, okay, let me just take it one step at a time. And each step that I take, one of two things happen. Either it validates that I shouldn't have taken those steps in the first place, in which case I turn around and go another way, or I start building up confidence because I realize that actually the danger is not as bad as I thought, or there is no danger at all. And I start to learn, and from that I grow. And once you start to grow, what the beauty is, Maria, is that your comfort zone starts to expand. And that's how you evolve as a human being.
Incredible
so
insights.
it's recognizing your fear. Everyone has their own little nuances when it comes to fear.
Definitely. We all do. We all do. Talk to us about some of your career journey highlights. If you look back at your career, what are those things that you think, wow, I did that?
So I'll start with my first job as an investment banker. It was one of the things that was very important for me was getting through interviews. I had to go through so many interviews to get that job. And what I was proud of was I heard this from another, and I shared this with the audience today, is apply for jobs you don't want. Because that gives you one thing, which is experience in interviews. The last thing you want is to go to your actual dream job and completely stall or mess up that interview. And I tell you, I messed up so many interviews in the beginning because I was nervous, I forgot things, I was not confident. But because I applied for lots of jobs I didn't want, I got a lot of practice. And so when it came to the industry which I wanted to enter, I was very confident in interviews, and that helped me to get the job. I think it was something like 2,000 applications where they only selected 40 people. So that was definitely a highlight for me. And the second highlight that I want to share is when I made the decision to leave my friend's company. It was a very difficult decision for me to make because I didn't know where I wanted to go. But I knew that at the crossroad, I had to make a decision, neither of which I was happy with, but one I wanted to protect. So, whenever you reach that crossroad, really assess those 2 or 3 different parts and ask yourself, what's important for you? Because a lot of people said, oh, look, he left. And, there were lots of rumors, but I didn't listen to any of them. I said, I just kept my head down and I kept working and I kept at it. So that's another one that I would highlight. The third is how to use your time effectively. As someone who's a mountaineer, I have to leave my office for 2 weeks at a stretch. And the last mountain I climbed, I was in the dark, meaning there was no way to communicate with me because there was no signal at all for a week. And there's always this fear, especially as a leader, that how is the company going to survive without me? But the reality is, because with proper planning, we put procedures and processes in place, the team were able to function without being able to connect with me for over a week. And I would say that's really a highlight, because if you imagine those situations that, hey, what if I'm not there, or I'm sick, or I'm injured, or I'm in quarantine, whatever it might be, how do you set yourself up so that everything around your roles and responsibilities is still able to continue?
Great highlights. Really, really great. Lots of food for thought that you're leaving us with, regardless of our age. Your top 3 career tips, as you say, is believe in yourself and be authentic. You know what is best for you. You say that a young person should build a passive income because they never know what may happen in that career. And finally, movement is a key to a healthy life. So you're encouraging young people to keep moving. Let's talk about the passive income. So a young person realistically walking into their future career, what we're seeing with studies is that they won't just have one job for life. They will definitely be having a few side things going on. So it's interesting that you also mentioned having that passive income. Give us some more insight into why that is one of your top tips.
So, the world that we live in, I see around me, there are a lot of people who are in debt. They're always chasing to pay off their credit cards or their house loan or their car loan or whatever it is, because we've been brainwashed to think you have to buy a house, a car, and this and that, and live a certain life. And oh, look, I'm comparing myself to my friends or people I know, and they're buying all these things, I should buy too. But you're constantly just chasing and trying to keep up with all these payments. But how about you say, you know what? Let me simplify my life. What do I really need? What really makes me happy? Let me focus in on those areas. And then slowly but surely, let me start putting some money aside every single month. So if I'm getting 100, for example, I'm going to put 5 or 10 or 15, depending on the expenses, aside every single month. And you might say, well, I can't buy certain assets are very expensive, but there are all these companies nowadays. And, if you look here in the UAE, you have something like Beehive, where you can put in as little as 100 dirhams as an investment, if I'm not mistaken. And you can gradually build that up over time. And, you're getting a return on that investment. So find something that is appropriate to your risk profile and start putting money away and saving it and let it grow. Because, today you might say, oh, how much is 100 dirhams going to, earn for me? But as you build that pot up, and slowly the next thing you know, that becomes 100,000 dirhams, 1,000,000 dirhams, and then you're earning, maybe 50,000 extra dirhams a year just because you had set money aside. And this is without you working. So it's not about getting the side jobs, right? Passive income is really income that's being generated regardless of what you do. So start saving rather than just constantly thinking about how to spend your money every time you get a bonus or the paycheck.
Definitely food for thought here. Saahil, talk to us about your book. Really interested. Show us your book and tell us the inspiration behind it.
So here you have Break Free, a guide to decluttering your life. So, one of the things I said, which is important for everyone, is to be you, to be authentic. So I lived a life of pleasing others. I always wanted to please others, even if it was to the expense of my own health, or I didn't agree with it. I wanted their validation. I was really concerned about how people will judge me. And that led to my relationship struggling. That led to my health deteriorating because I was not happy. And in some cases, I was probably close to or maybe even had mild depression. But in 2016, in the spring, I experienced something I hadn't experienced for a long time. And that was, I was in an environment of no judgment. And I got to taste how it was like to be me for 4 days straight. Now, when I came back from that trip, I said, I don't want to go back to the man I used to be, one that feared judgment. And so I started asking myself, hey, what's holding you back? And I started to identify things that were pulling me down, which I now refer to as clutter. And I address them one at a time. So after about a year and a half, people started asking me, hey, Saahil, what's going on? I mean, you look better, you have more energy, you're happier. And so I started to share. I just was sharing my story. And then, sharing in small groups, then that became larger groups. Then it became on stage, then on international stages. And I realized that not everyone has access to me. So let me write a book so that anyone, anywhere in the world, regardless of their wealth, can afford to buy something where they can learn the tools and rituals that I've applied in my life and that I continue to share with my clients around the world to help them to identify what's holding them back. Because, I can tell you as a mountaineer, if you're carrying excess weight that doesn't serve you any function or purpose, it's going to take longer, it's going to require more energy, and you may not even make it to the summit. So it's time to break free from this dead weight that's holding you down. Because I believe that each and every one of you is born for greatness. But you have to believe that too.
I feel like I'm in the front row of a TED Talk, motivational TED Talk. Saahil, so many interesting things that you've picked up on today. Where can we find your book?
So the book can be found on Amazon.com, Amazon.ae. It can be found at Borders and several other bookstores here in the region. Brilliant.
Thank you for being here with me today and sharing your journey from being an investment banker to becoming a mountaineer and an author. Saahil, it has been such a pleasure. And I hope everybody watching this is walking away as inspired and motivated as I am today. We were speaking with Saahil Mehta, who is an entrepreneur, an author, and a mountaineer. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you at our next Desk Careers Digital Spotlight.